Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode.
Hello, everyone. This is Susan, the Shed Gal, and welcome to this week's episode of the Shed Geek podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I have the absolute pleasure of having my guest this week. It's Pam Karousis. Pam and I have never met in person, just some interaction on Facebook. And Pam, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a big fan of you and Shannon.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that because I'm a big fan of yours. We're just going to see where this leads. So tell me, let's start out by telling me where you are, and let's talk about who you represent and how you got into this really cool industry.
Okay, I'm located in Northeast Ohio. I'm close to Warren. I guess that would be the biggest, recognizable city.
Yes.
I have been at this little farm. I don't know if you can hear my roosters, they're out there. I've been here for about 20 years, and I was a nail tech before I got into selling sheds.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
So during COVID, of course, the, Attorney General, Governor, whoever shut us down during COVID for our nail salon. And when we started back up again, I had a lot of clients that weren't coming back in because of COVID. So I really needed to find another source of income since I'm kind of running this farm all on my own. So I saw a Facebook ad that said they needed somebody to sit at this shed sales lot on Sundays. And I thought, and they paid $100 for a Sunday. And I thought, well, I could use an extra $400 a month. So I replied to the ad, and he had me come in the next day for an interview. And I think he kind of reluctantly hired me. He said, well, it's either hire you or interview 28 more people. So you're hired.
Wow, that made you feel important.
Yeah, I did. I had to pass a math test too for, rent to own and all that stuff. It was hilarious. So I think I did good during the interview. And I started working Sundays, and within a month, they added Wednesday and Sunday. So I had to tell my nail clients, oh, I'm working at this shed place on Wednesdays now. So I was 2 days a week, and that was in July. And it was only a couple more months. I think in October, I told the nail place, I had done nails for 35 years. And I said, the income that I'm making selling sheds no way compares to sitting here doing nails. So I just jumped with both feet into sheds full time, and I have loved it ever since.
So that is so interesting. So I love the stories in this industry because everybody comes from somewhere, but nails. I just had mine done yesterday, by the way.
You pretty.
I run Shendell nails, but coming from what a jump, but yet
Yes.
again, not a jump as far as being a people person. So at that point, you were working for a dealer.
Yes.
And then is that how it is currently, or what transpired? And what year was that? Was that like 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2021. So
Okay.
July of 2021, I started selling sheds on Sundays. And then
Yeah.
in October that year, I just quit doing nails and started doing sheds full time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was kind of a push in the right direction. I'd been looking for something else to do. I wasn't in love with doing nails anymore, and I absolutely love my job selling sheds. I was started out with like a local dealer, just a local, shed builder,
Yeah.
lot. And he just wasn't meeting my expectations for me or my customers. So I stayed with him a year, hoping he'd get his act together. And it was pretty obvious he wasn't going to. So I quit there, and within 2 months, I had hooked up with an Old Hickory dealer, Mark Coplow, and he owns 4 dealerships in Northeast Ohio, and I work at 2 of them. So I work at our
Wow.
Parkman location. I'm there 4 days a week, and then I work at the Kirtland location, and that's 2 days a week.
Wow. So you're all in that, but and yet you're working with the dealer, but you're kind of running the show at those two lots, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. He just kind of leaves me at that Parkman lot unsupervised, and I get to do whatever I want.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because one of the things that I see, online with you on your page and on the sales professional page, you're very, very creative.
Yes.
And you do things. I've seen you finish off some buildings, and I want to talk about that. And I certainly will put some pictures in here to show some of the things you've done, because every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I wish I had that creativity in me. I just don't. It's just there. It's nowhere in here. So wonderful. So you're 6 days a week. If you could pick the top thing you like about the shed industry, and you're with, again, Old Hickory, what's your your favorite thing about the industry?
It would have to be meeting the customers and finding out what it is that they're going to be using the shed for, and then finding the perfect shed for their needs. So it's really important to kind of have that discussion with them up front. What will you be storing in the shed? What are you using it for? And kind of get a feel for what kind of storage solution they're looking for, or building use. A lot of people use their shed for other things.
Absolutely. Boy, isn't that the truth? I think back of some of the um, uses that my customers use their buildings for, anywhere from just storing their stuff to I had one gentleman, a couple came in, they were wonderful, wonderful couple, retired, and they bought one because he was using it as a quilting shed. I can't quilt, but I mean, but then they finished it off with, they went to Habitat for Humanity and they bought this beautiful set of cabinets that looked to me like they were brand new for $150, and he had it all done up, and they kept sending me pictures of the progress, and my guess is he's still quilting in that quilting shed. So, anywhere from animals to storage, it's fun. Tiny homes,
Mhm.
whatever folks want to use. You had mentioned, it's fun to find out their needs. That's so interesting because there's some things that are very different from doing nails to doing, shed sales. But yesterday when I went and had my nails done, of course, I just moved to Arkansas, so I had to find a new nail place. And she said, what are you looking for? What shape are you looking for? Do you want them cut shorter? Do you want, what
Yeah.
color do you want? You do the same thing. That
Yeah.
gal yesterday did the same thing as far as
Good.
asking questions. And we don't slam anybody on our podcast, but I heard you say something at the beginning that your expectations in the first year elsewhere weren't being met. I want to talk about that because I have an inkling of where this might be going, but we haven't talked about it without being negative towards anyone or a company. Let's talk about in general what expectations were not being met, because my guess is a lot of our viewers are going to go, oh, that sounds familiar, or some of us will go, oops, that's me. um
Yeah, yeah. So, I think it's really important. My number one recommendation now when people say, "Oh, I'm just looking, I'm just shopping for a shed," and I always say, "Oh, please check reviews before you decide on where you're going to buy," because it's so important to read the reviews of any company and do a little research before you get involved and actually put money towards that company. So that was one of the biggest problems, was he just wasn't delivering sheds in the time promised. He would say 6 to 8 weeks, and it might be 6 to 8 months, it might be a year, it might be longer than a year. And I just found that acceptable. I tried to give him some leeway because we were just coming out of COVID. And I was like, well, maybe this is how it is coming out of COVID with the shed
yeah,
industry. People are sick. It's something, that's going on. But after a year of disappointing people, I have to be able to sleep at night
yeah,
knowing that you're going to get your shed and it's going to be perfect, and the delivery driver is going to be cheerful and not have an attitude. So there was just a lot of things he was falling down on, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I am 100% happy where I'm at with K&K Barn Sales. They are wonderful. My
wonderful.
boss is fabulous. The company just really reaches out of their way to make customers happy and do what they promise. So that was so important to me.
I love that. And wait, and I think you just misspoke because you said it was acceptable, how was happening before was unacceptable. And I'm glad you clarified that it was when coming out of COVID, because someone watching may say, well, when COVID everything went sideways, and that is true. But you're talking about when it's coming out of COVID, and it sounds like maybe what you have now is a completely different customer experience, because I think you'll agree that it's the things we can't control that are so frustrating. And, if a delivery goes sideways, no, I'm not talking that the delivery driver is sick or the hauler has a blowout on their tire. They can't control those things either, but I'm talking about their attitude and those things. So I'm glad that you're having a much better experience, because at the end of the day, we all know the person selling the shed is the one that gets the negative review.
Yeah.
And gets the customer mad. And it's, I'm seeing some changes in the industry. I think, perhaps a few years ago, and congratulations, by the way, on your 3-year anniversary for July.
Yes, thanks.
That's super excited. My 7-year anniversary, August 1st, very exciting. There's a picture behind me. Oh, right there. Look at that. I pointed at it. I'm not going to zoom in because my husband will get so mad. But prior to having a bad experience buying a shed, which led me into the shed industry, my husband bought a shed. And we spent thousands of dollars, and it didn't meet my expectations. And so we started looking, and that's when I found that the shed industry really was lacking, at least in my area. It was really lacking folks that knew what they were doing. What type of, when you're giving a customer a good customer experience, how are you setting the expectations with them?
Well, I think the number one thing is to always have like a positive attitude when you're approaching a customer that comes to the lot. I don't want to be pushy. These high pressure sales are not for me. And I tell them, I'm just here to give you information and help you make a good decision. If you'd like me to email you a quote, we can email a quote for you to look at. That is no problem. It takes 5 minutes. What kind of shed are you looking for today? And what kind of things are you planning on storing in your shed? And I think the one big thing we get is, oh, we're out of room. The garage is full. We have to get our cars in, and especially Northeast Ohio for the winter.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
they have to start, somewhere to get all this stuff out of the garage. And I tell them, well, when you get your shed, make it your garage sale shed, because that's kind of good advertising for me too.
Absolutely. Boy, it sure is. And that's probably for me over the years the most common reason of, it's either my wife said that I need to get the stuff out of the garage, or my husband said, but that is a big deal. And I know I personally had that problem too. So yeah. So you're asking questions to determine their needs. You're using the opposite of a high pressure sales pitch. Yeah, I love that. And let's face it, there's probably dealers out there that a high pressure sales pitch works for them. And if it works for them, I'm not suggesting they not use it, but I love that we can talk about all different facets, because there is no one size fits all, right? I spend a lot of my time training dealers, and we talk about that just because it worked for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. You have to buy into it. So do you have an identity? I mean, obviously I have an identity in the shed industry of being Shed Gal. Do you have an identity, or are you Pam?
I am Pam, I am. That's how I introduce myself to customers. They always remember my name. They never come back and say, what was that girl's name? They always remember that. So it kind of creates a real friendly first approach. And I tell them, I'm just here to answer questions. Let me give you a little bit of information. I kind of throw out, the big differences between the lofted and the utility sheds. Those are our two most popular. And I give them the options. For the utility shed, you can make the walls taller, and I show them the difference. And they're like, wow, you do get a lot more room. And, the lofted shed, you might get 80 more square feet of up storage on a 10 by 20.
Right.
That's important. So if you need 80
Yes.
more square feet, it's worth a couple $100 extra to do that. Do you want the door on the end or the side? And they're like, oh, we have a choice. And it's like, my personal preference is to kind of walk in and go left or right instead of walk in the end and walk through 20 feet of my stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good point, So
that is a good point. And I like the way that I'm hearing you already. What you're doing for me is you're painting the picture in my head of just by the words you're saying. And I
Yes.
can see why customers love you. I mean, I can see why, because, okay, and let's continue on. That was good.
So I do have one shed on our lot in Parkman that I fixed up to be like a garden shed. So I staged this shed and I actually bought one of those camping fish cleaning tables at the outdoor store next door to us. And,
Yes.
you know, it has the little sink in it. So I bought that and then I put marble contact paper on the countertop part. And on the sink, I ordered a rechargeable water faucet from Amazon for $10. And I hooked that into a 5-gallon water reservoir. And then you have the wastewater go into like a waste can with a lid. And now you have a sink to wash your hands, and it costs you $10 plus the table and the contact paper. But now you have a way to wash your hands in the shed. So the people are just blown away by that. The power packs are so popular. Our office is run off of a rechargeable power station, they call it. And I just bring it home at night and charge it up and bring it back the next day, and it runs the office. It doesn't make coffee, I gotta tell you, but it does run lights, monitor, computer, you know, the lightweight stuff. But yeah,
Yes.
it was a failure on the coffee. I think I'd have to spend a lot more than, you know, $150 on that.
Right.
I have my little garden shed set up, and I do have a 4-foot LED light above the little, you know, sink table. And I go, look, you just need this little power pack. You don't have to trench a line. You don't have to run electric out there. You could have electric in your shed to run small stuff like this. And I turn it on, and they're just like, wow, power and water. And I'm like, yeah. So that is a big draw.
It is a huge draw. And that's, I had reached out to you when I saw the pictures of that, because I was like, number one, even if I had seen a picture, I would have thought, oh, to be able to get water would be so expensive. And did I just hear you say it was $10? I mean, $10 for the part that runs water. And then,
Yes.
yeah, we're gonna I think we're going to put a little line item here of how much it would cost to do that. And you're going to have people that copy you doing it, and that's totally fine. One of
Yes.
them's going to be me.
Yes, that's fine.
It doesn't matter if people copy what you do when it's working. You're definitely leading the pack. And then the power station, I actually worked with the dealer up in Washington State, and she had one of the power. It's probably the same thing that she took home at night, and it was kind of the size of a battery. Is that what it would? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know anything like that was available. Our first lot did not have power of any type for 18 months in Western
Right.
Washington. It was
Yeah.
very fun on a dark, gray, drizzly day, but you do what you have to do and you get scrappy. So I love it. People are going to love seeing the pictures of that garden shed, because that your creativity and just like thinking outside the box of being able to show potential customers, you can do this too, and it's economical. I mean, that's the big
Absolutely.
deal. If money's not an issue, anybody can do anything, but it's usually an issue.
And
So
the big upside to that is that they'll often start designating some space for that station. So now you're selling an extra 4 feet of shed space instead of, a 10 by 16. They'll go, oh, we should do a 10 by 20 because we're going to have water.
right. Well,
Yeah.
what a creative way to get them. I mean, it's yes, it's upselling, but it's if they have the need and they want water in there, they're just naturally leading themselves to a bigger building. So how cool is that? How cool is that? I did a little market research thing the other day where I went online and I just pulled up different zip codes, and I pulled up tons of different dealers with all different companies' posts. So I wasn't trying to pick on anyone. And one of the things I saw is almost every single dealer's posts look the same.
Mhm.
I feel like you get a little more creative. And tell me about, when customers are coming to you, aside from the people that drive by and stop in, where are you getting your customers from? What are you doing?
Well, I think just from the drive-by standpoint, we used to be in a very small town, just about 8 miles from where we're at now. And we were like on the driveway back to Walmart in a small town. And it's a mostly Amish village. So
Yes.
we were getting people that needed to go to Walmart that lived in that area. And my boss and I had a talk, and he says, well, I'm thinking about moving the lot. So he moved the lot, like I said, about 8 miles away. We are at a very busy intersection now. So we are right at the corner of two big intersections, and the traffic is going to Cleveland and
Oh,
Bainbridge and all
wow.
these big cities around us. And it has been a huge thing for us to have more drive-by traffic interested. Facebook Marketplace is the other one that I do a lot of advertising on. And I try to give as much information as I can in the ad about the size and the features and, the payment options, delivery, stuff like that, just so that they read through and they think, wow, this place is very upfront about what their, expectations are going to be for me to get my shed, how to pay
Yes.
for it. And I think when I read the other people's ads, they're very vague. They're like, come down and see this 8x12 shed. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, how do I pay for it? Do you offer rent to own? How long do I have to wait for
Yeah.
delivery?
Yeah. I go around and around with dealers all the time about put the who, what, when, where, why, and how in your posts. If
Yes.
it is a proven fact that consumers are not, when they're scrolling, they're not, yes, someone may search shed in marketplace, but consumers typically it's the path of least resistance. If I'm scrolling or I'm in a group and a post pops up, I'm not going to go to that person's Facebook page or have to search for who they are or where they are or how to contact them. And I've heard, well, we all know we're never going to outsmart Facebook when something works. When some works for us, they're going to change it to monetize it for them. And I mean, they're a business, that's what they do. But I'm seeing a pattern nationwide with dealers who provide more information and that it looks nice and it's in paragraphs and it says how, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I literally see, if you took 100 posts, my guess is 80 of them, if it's just random, you've got pictures and there's nothing in the post that says their business name, where they are, or anything. And it's just, folks, come on. It's 2024. What worked for you 5 years ago in marketplace is not going to work today. And, you're in the Shed Sales Professionals page. I recently saw a post where there's been many posts where people are struggling. There's no doubt, but there is cause and effect. If you look like everyone else's posts, you're going to be in the masses of struggling. And I can't encourage that. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. One of the things too, I've had several dealers say, well, the algorithms of Facebook are bad if you put your address in. Well, that may have been true years ago, but it's not true now. And I know that it oftentimes blocks the phone number, but get it in your logo. Get your phone number in the picture of the logo and use it as one of your pictures. So just, that's just some helpful advice. And it's like the dealers like yourself that are doing really well and are not, we all have ebbs and flows. It isn't, any one particular thing. It's never going back to COVID. Oh, we hope it never goes back to COVID. That was just a rough time, even though sales skyrocketed. But there are certain things that I think you can agree when you're looking that if you're scrolling through, there are ads that or posts that are much more attractive than others.
Yeah. And I think having more pictures, the one thing that really bugged me is people that'll put a picture of, the front of the shed and there's your picture. And people are like, well, what does the inside look like? And I'm like, why don't you have pictures of the inside? Why don't you have more pictures of the side, the back, they're looking for information to buy a shed. And am I going to buy a shed from somebody that just puts the front of it and says, here's an 8x12 or a 10x20? Or am I going to buy from somebody that has more pictures and they're showing everything, they're upfront about, the delivery process, the warranty, how to pay for it, how to contact us, what our business name is. So who am I going to buy from? The person that's looking kind of sketchy over there with just a picture and come look at this shed, or am I
Yeah.
going to be buying from somebody that's putting a lot of information out there so that
Yes.
I can read through it and then have questions about, well, let me ask them this or that, and then give me a call. So that's what I'm looking for.
I love that. And I was kind of laughing in my head because I didn't use Facebook Marketplace prior to getting into selling sheds. And I wish I had like printed out and saved a few of my first posts, because if I look back, I'm sure they were absolutely horrific. In fact, I'm sure they're like what I see a lot of now. And it worked 7 years ago, because when I started in Washington State, there wasn't, I can't even think of another dealer up there. And of course, it's still in its infancy back even in Washington State now, but you see a lot more companies and a lot more dealers posting. I mean, my pictures were horrible, my content was horrible, but what I did was, I tweaked it and I looked at the results, and I tweaked it and I looked at the results, and what worked 7 years ago is not going to work today. It's not. I have not found, and I could be wrong. It's happened before many times. I could be wrong in this, but I have not found a successful dealer that their posts look like everybody else's.
Greetings from the Shed Gal. As I delve deeper into the shed and steel building industries, I am thrilled to establish connections with friends who offer amazing products, such as Wendell Hochstetler, the owner of VersaBend Tube Bender. At VersaBend, they thank you for your interest in their tube bender. The VersaBend is designed to bend 2-inch, 2¼ inch, and 2½ inch square tubing, as well as 2x3-inch rectangular tubing in either 14 or 12 gauge. Powered by a robust 5-horsepower unit, it features 2 adjustable stops for setting your desired degree or pitch. Priced at just $19,500 and shipped from Abbeville, South Carolina, you can secure your VersaBend with a down payment of only $1,500. Contact them today to check availability and get placed on their order list. VersaBend is a family-owned business dedicated to providing an easy-to-operate bender made with off-the-shelf components. A unique feature of their bender is that it offers a full radius bend, unlike the double crushed bends produced by most other machines. Want to see it in action? Visit their website at www.csecarport.supply or give them a call at 864-446-3645.
With AI, I was playing around with Gemini.google.com. I'm not a paid spokesperson, but spokesgal. But I was playing around with writing posts the other day on it. It was like, holy cow. Like, it gives you suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't give me any suggestion to say, new 8x12, shed. It gave me just exactly what you're saying is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, if it worked better the other way, wouldn't AI be telling us so?
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And, you have to kind of look at everything from a customer's perspective, because once they see the ad and they come in, you have to think, does my lot look inviting? Is everything trimmed? Can they walk around and open doors and the sheds are clean and swept out? I'll go through and wash windows. Before delivery,
my language.
Before delivery, that shed is swept out, the windows are washed, the screens are clean. I take one look around and I'm like, yeah, this is how I would want my shed delivered. And I kind of panic if the driver gets there and I haven't done it yet. I'm out there with my broom and my Windex and my paper towels. He goes, Pam. I go, I'm sorry, it just can't leave until it's done. So, the lot has to look great. My office has to look great. I want people to walk in my office and go, wow, my shed could look like this. And that's the wow factor that I'm looking for is everything clean, neat, organized, right within my reach. I don't want to be stumbling around and looking for color samples or something. I want to be able to reach over and say, well, here's our brochure and here's my business card. And do you need a pen? So you just have to kind of set it up from a customer perspective. Are they going to walk in and are they going to be impressed with how you have your office shed set up? And maybe it gets them thinking, mine could look like this. Wow.
Right. I'm 100% with you. I mean, in my head, I'm like, I'm doing a 2 weeks of training this week and then next week that I'm doing for two separate groups. I'm like, man, I wish I had more notice. I would have had you come out and train these folks, because this is literally the stuff we're going over. I've gone into many, many, many dealers' lots with all different companies throughout the country. You just never know when the shed gal's going to pop up. I'm not looking to catch anybody. I love the people, but I'm telling you, when I go into an office that's got papers piled up to here, that they don't have flyers that have their name and number on them. They don't, it is and again, I've always said that I always look at everything from the point of the customer walking in. There are order takers that are struggling in this industry, and there are people that are working really hard and they're still struggling. And then there are folks that have found all the pieces. And I think the biggest thing in this podcast, we're not picking on anybody. It's to give people hints. My guess is you're the same way. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone in this industry to succeed. There are enough customers for all of us. And unfortunately, I keep seeing folks drop off. Good people. They're good people. So let me ask you this. Did you just naturally know what to do, or did you get training of what to do?
The first job I had, they kind of were like, here's how you write up an order. Here's how you do this, online thing. Here's how you send. It was just basically about how to make them money. And I looked around at their office. They had a beautiful office, but it needed cleaned, it needed swept, it needed organized. And the other fellow that worked at the office, I was there 2 days a week, Sunday and Wednesday, and he'd come in and he'd go, wow, what have you been doing?
He noticed.
What have you been doing? And the office I'm in now that I have, fixed up to my standards, 2 previous employees have stopped by and they just walked in and went, wow, I love what you've done to this office. And I'm like, hello, you could have done this too, And the one fellow said, well, I didn't want to put a lot of money into it. And I said, this is contact paper on these shelves. It wasn't expensive.
Right.
I swept the floor.
Yeah, and
I
that's
organized
free.
the shelves so they looked attractive. I added my own little knickknacks here and there, and I added a light fixture,
Yes.
my power pack. They'd been working without it. I don't know how, but it wasn't expensive to fix this up, people. You just needed, and my friends, they get very frightened when I say I have a vision for this space. They go, oh my God, no.
Right.
Just go to vision. Everybody hurry, get out.
Isn't that funny? Because they think it's going to be expensive, but and I just look at it again, going back to the customer thing. If I'm a potential, it's 2024. You walk into a business. The expectation is it's going to look like it's a professional. Even if you're selling a shed, I am a professional that sells sheds. And I think that's a big issue in the industry is people, they don't look at it from the customer point of view. And that's interesting. Tell me about the signage you have, and what's the is there a business name for the Old Hickory dealer that you work for? You mentioned his name. Is there an actual business name?
It's K&K Barn Sales, and he owns a lot in Parkman, Kirtland, Perry, and Elyria. So he has 4 locations, and I just work at Parkman and Kirtland. Those are my 2.
Don't minimize it. I just work at those.
I know. I wish I had time to go to all of them because I just love meeting all the people and helping them out. But it's just very interesting how just fixing up stuff and looking at the obvious stuff that your customer is going to look at and saying,
Yeah.
wow, that doesn't look so good. I need to, clean this up over here. I need to reorganize. It's just, to me, basic common sense. I really approach it from a customer's point of view. And I don't think a lot of people do that. They just are like, well, this
Oh,
is my
no, I don't think most,
messy. And
most do.
you can't be like that. You have to wow the customer the whole way through their experience. And I've had customers say, well, we're just looking. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm just here to give you information. Go ahead and look. And they go ahead and look and they call me an hour or two later. They're like, we're ready to buy. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. So no high pressure from me. I'm here to give information, help you with your decision, help you find what works for you. If you buy from me, fine. And I would say a very high percentage of my customers, return the call me back and buy.
Well, and I can see why. In just this half hour or so that we've been talking, I can see why that you're exceptional at building rapport. It's funny, you mentioned, they say I'm just looking. That is a natural instinct that people do. And so I've heard some dealers take it literal. Well, they were wasting my time because they were just looking. Folks, that's nonsense. It's not that. It's a self-protection thing. I mean, I do it. I go into a furniture store. We recently were in a furniture store, had an absolutely fantastic experience. Didn't buy because I did want to go look. And I told her, I am going to go to this other store. But, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to give you my card. Because you can actually, if you're welcome to come back, but you could actually call me and we can write it up over the phone. And I went to the second furniture store and the poor young man needs some help. He was like, I walked in, it was the high pressure, just, and I answered his questions and said, we are just looking, we'll walk around. I'll let you know if you have any questions. And I turned around and I was walking away and he keeps asking me questions. And I was like, whoa. Like, I wasn't trying to be rude to him. Like, I answered his questions and I was going to go do what I said. And it was icky. I didn't like it. And, we left there and I called the gal. Well, my husband called the gal back and we did the order over the phone and it was absolutely fantastic. So, to each their own. I mean, that young man's style might work for some, but I think in today's day and age, we have too many other people to choose from to be uncomfortable when we're buying something. So if you're listening or watching, keep in mind, just because someone says I'm looking, sometimes they're just saying I need a little bit of space. And if we do our job, like Pam is saying, and it's that low pressure, but providing them the value of giving them an answer for what they need. What did you say? Sometimes they call me back in an hour or two. I mean, that's ideal. That's what we want.
I would say the majority of the time they call me back, if not within an hour or two, within a week or so.
Yes.
I have a very good, callback rate connection with these customers. And they're just like, and they'll tell me at the end of our deal, they'll say, you were so helpful. You answered all of our questions. You thought of things about this design that we didn't even consider. I had a really lovely couple in yesterday. And they were getting a lofted, what we call a playhouse shed. It has the front porch and the loft and all that. And they were beekeepers. So they just loved my little display shed that had the water in it. They were like,
I bet.
You've got to be kidding me. We could have water. We don't have to dig a line. I'm like, you could wash all that sticky stuff off right here. She was taking pictures. And I do have like a Facebook page where I've put all my tutorials on how I did all these shed designs. So she, jumped on, I sent her the link. She jumped on that and she's like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff. I was like, yeah, there's plenty there. And everything is outlined A to Z, how I did it, how much it cost, what I spent, everything. But
people love that because people love it because they can envision it. What is that link? Do you mind sharing it? You might get some followers that'll get some helpful hints.
Yeah, so I am the only Pam Karousis in the world. So if you message me on Facebook, I can text you the link to my Facebook page that has all of that information. You know, they're like those big long link things. So
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so I can't really
Wonderful.
share it now, but if you message me, I'll be happy to share it with you because
Perfect.
I think for the shed industry to get more people using their shed as more than a shed, you
Oh,
know, it's
absolutely.
so good.
That's the way it's going. Look, I mean, I'm just thinking of even the difference in the last 3 years of what companies are offering. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But I want to go back to what kind of signage do you have on your lot? My guess is you've got some nice signage, and I don't mean the most expensive signage,
Mhm.
but my guess is when people drive by, they know who you are. Is that
So
true?
I'm working on my boss to get a sign by the road. We just moved there last July, and he is a super busy guy. He builds ramps and he does site prep for people. He does shed demo. So he's overcoming all the objections to people have about getting a shed. Well, I'd like to get a shed, but I have this old shed. Oh, no problem. We offer shed demo. You know, I'm going to need a ramp to get my mower in. No problem. We build ramps, you know.
Yes.
I would like to get site prep done. No problem. We offer that, you know. So you've got to get good at overcoming the objections.
Yeah.
I want to go back for just a second and talk about the loft with these beekeeper people.
Oh,
They
yeah.
put an 8-foot loft in the back of the shed because that's where they were going to do their honey stuff. And I said to them, I'm very concerned about this 8-foot loft. I mean, on our shed builder program, you can look at it in 3D. And I said, I'm worried about the stuff at the back of your 8-foot loft. And they go, what do you mean? I go, well, how will you ever reach it? I said, my suggestion would be to do 2 lofts that are 3 feet deep and put a 3-foot space in between so you can come up and go to either side of that loft and get your stuff. And they went, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And they just
Yeah.
looked at one another like, man, she really thought of a good idea there. But I did have concerns and I wanted to run that past them. If they'd have said, nope, 8 foot, I would have went, okay. But I think they're going to be much happier with the spacing so that they can reach everything.
I completely agree. I'm just thinking in my head numerous times I said to folks when they were talking about storage, something similar. Now it was different if they were using it for different uses, but I would say, I don't know about you, but I know about me. If I put some on the back of that 8 or 12 foot loft, I am
Yes.
not going to, it'll, you know,
You're never
I'll
seeing that
probably be
again.
gone when my kids are going, something will happen to me and I'm not here anymore. And my kids will be going through it 40 years from now. And they'll be like, why did she say this? So
Yeah,
yeah. But
exactly.
thinking of, yeah. And you said something, and I think actually that you're doing something different. You said overcoming objections. And what I hear you actually doing is preventing them. And there's a
Mhm.
difference. We could, isolate the objection and acknowledge the objection and overcome it. And that, okay, if that works for you, that's fine. But it's 2024 and it is so important to prevent that. Like the demo, you're preventing because you already have a solution.
Yeah.
I love that. It's being proactive. And I think that when I am doing that, it's because of problems that have come up in the past. If I got someone saying so many times, so many different potential customers had the same issue, it was like, okay, how can I prevent this? How can I address it up front? We've got your solution.
Yes.
We've got your solution.
And we
What do
see
you
the same
think?
problems, all the
Yeah,
time. You have the customers with the same problems.
yeah,
So
yeah. I actually printed off a bunch of posts the other day for this training I'm doing, and that section is going to be called "This is your competition." And
oh,
when we get to that part of the training, the mindset has changed because we know so many dealers are struggling and having the same issues. And so once I get them to that point, they're already going to acknowledge that they need to be different. And because if I take that training right up front, they're going to be like, yeah, it looks like my post too. But when I get them to that point, when I was looking at these posts, I'm like, wow, the just the dramatic difference. And I think it comes down to training. And oftentimes it comes down to training. you had mentioned when you started, basically, here's a little training on our software. And that's what I got with the first company I represented 7 years ago was, here's an hour, hour and a half of training, and then good luck. And that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, every single thing I had to learn. Hence, I have literally the best standard operating procedures in the industry, hands down. In writing, very valuable because it's like, how is it in this day of technology that in our industry, for some reason, we're still behind?
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing too?
Well, it's very unusual, I think, for a shed dealer to have SOPs. People are like, what's an SOP? It's like, it stands for standard operating procedure. It's what you expect your employees to do. It's what you expect, how you expect them to handle different situations, how you expect them.
Do.
Yes, I just want you to do what I'm doing. Just keep the lot clean, be approachable, be friendly, leave your problems at home, try to help the customer. I mean, there's just so much to that the people don't stand back and look at, how am I coming off to the customers that are coming onto my lot or calling me? Am I being helpful? Am I being the person that they need to talk to resolve their problems? And are they getting that, positive vibe? And you just have to be the one to provide them with, friendly, comfortable information. And that's been working for me.
When we go back to the standard operating procedures, I mean, I have standard operating procedures for myself that are completely different from my employees because a lot of the dealers that are watching and listening, it's them. They own their job and they're not knowing what to do. And so then when they hire someone, now we have oftentimes even more of a train wreck, or it gets in a situation where a really good person who has great potential just gives up literally before the miracle happens. But everything that I've done has been because of the issues I had along the way, and it stemmed from a lack of training. And it's interesting in this industry. Now I do see, a lot of companies that are starting to catch up. Certainly technology has with Shed Suite and different programs and CRMs and marketing companies like Shed Geek Marketing that really know the industry. Those things are catching up. But for the normal dealer who's just starting, they don't have the money for those things. But, with the education that is free, I think it's life-changing stuff. It's someone said to me the other day, I offered myself up to help a dealer. And I just said to them, well, let me know when you have questions. But they never let me know. And I said, because they don't know what questions to ask. It's the way, and I bet you see that too. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I had actually met Shannon at Shed University in Knoxville a few months ago. It was a fabulous experience. I got to meet other people in the shed industry. We got to talk all about, what they do, what works for them, throwing ideas around. It was just so refreshing because it was such an isolated industry. Doing nails, we have to have continuing education every 2 years. You had to have 20 hours or something. But with sheds, you don't have any continuing education. You're just kind of thrown out there on your own. So the Shed University for me was just like a big wow factor. I live in Ohio and I drove to Knoxville to go to this.
Wow.
And it was paired up with the Shed Carport Garage Trade Show.
Yes.
So after we wrapped up Shed University, we were able to go to this, the little sales floor and go talk to all the vendors. And RTO was there, and there was all different kinds of vendors and solutions for sheds. And I took lots of pictures, business cards, talked to people, took notes. I mean, it was just such a wonderful educational experience to go to that.
Have you been considering adding a line of greenhouses to your brand? At Cold Spring Enterprises, we have the perfect solution for you. By incorporating greenhouse products into your sales location, Whether you're a do-it-yourself dealer or a manufacturer supporting multiple shed lots, you can expand your customer base. We offer easy-to-assemble greenhouse kits that will simplify the process of adding greenhouses to your lot. You can choose between two basic styles, an economy style and an A-frame style. We can ship a standard 8x12 greenhouse kit directly to your shed lot or manufacturing location. These kits include all the necessary components for assembly, except for the wainscoting or clear panels, door, and fan. However, we can assist you in connecting with the supplier for these items. Moreover, we also offer negotiable bulk pricing for multiple units. To help you get started, we are pleased to offer an exclusive discount through the Shed Geek podcast. You can receive an 8x12 economy or A-frame style greenhouse, complete with wainscoting or clear panels, a screen door, and fan. The pricing for a complete one-time display unit starts at $2,195 for an economy style and $2,545 for an A-frame style, excluding shipping and tax. For more information and to request bulk unit pricing, please visit www.shedgeek.com/cold-spring-enterprises and fill out your information, and someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Or simply go to the Shed Geek newsletter and click on the greenhouse picture to fill out your information. Thank you for considering our greenhouse kits. We are excited to work together to bring greenhouse kits to your line of products.
I love that. It's such a fun industry, and there's a sense of camaraderie between those of us that reach out to each other. It's the people. I went to the Shed Haulers Bash back in March in North Carolina, and I mean, my expectations were so high. I was like, oh boy, this might not be good. It blew me away. It blew me away. Even though my expectations were so high, and I've met so many great people there. And I mean, there was, I don't know, like for dinner, there was like 700 or 750 people or something. I mean, it was huge. But the camaraderie, and it doesn't mean that necessarily everybody likes everybody, but I heard someone recently say, even if there's a hauler and maybe we don't get along, maybe there's just a personality thing. Listen, if that hauler's broke down beside the road, I'm stopping to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I see more of that happening with the shed dealers too, and I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I want everyone to win.
Yeah. Well, I just posted something about that the other day, and it's truly who I am. I mean, I want everybody to win. It makes me sad when people have all the outside reasons why, but they don't know what to do.
And I think they're just, it's like a convenient excuse as to why their sales aren't what they should be.
Pam said it, not me. Both
I did. I said it.
Reasons.
I did. It was a convenient excuse. And you just have to kind of look at, well, why is this happening? And how can I get more customers? And what do I need to change? And what do I need to do that's different? Because there is a solution out there. You just have to find it.
Exactly. And oftentimes that involves reaching out to someone who's walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Or working harder.
Let me ask you this. So you proudly represent Old Hickory, for K&K Barn sales. Do you offer anything else on your display lots?
We have kind of started offering the hang this up shed storage system. So I have a couple kits in my office, and my little garden shed has some of their stuff, of course, hanging up there to demonstrate, how cool that system is. So I have kits available for them to buy and walk away with, and they'll be ready when their shed's delivered. So we offer that, and that's been a really great option for a lot of people. They see how that storage system works, and right away they're like, oh, I get it. If I can get everything off the floor, my life is better.
Yes.
So
I love hanging this up, and they're not a paid advertiser. Perhaps I should reach out to them, but they have really good product. Do you do metal carports or metal buildings, or just the Old Hickory?
We have started selling the reliable metal buildings, and we started, probably about a year ago. They came out to the lot and put a big carport up, and they, like an RV cover, and then they built a garage with a lean-to. So yeah, we do a couple of those a month.
Wonderful. I'm a firm believer that uh, offering both is a wonderful partnership because you're not trying to drive someone away from an Old Hickory building. You're trying to service the customer. And if you can get more customers there, someone might come in for the metal carport and end up with one of your sheds, and someone might come in for a shed and find out that the metal building. I think it's a great partnership. I'm talking to a lot of folks with some of the biggest companies in the country. And it seems like the inkling is that's the way this industry is going. When I started out the first year or so, it could have been 18 months. Like, honestly, Pam, I don't know, because it was all a whirlwind, but I was given bad advice and was told I also couldn't sell metal carports because it was a conflict of interest, which
Nope.
didn't make any sense to me. And then when I brought him on, I was like, wow, I'm noticing that a lot more people coming in. And so I think the little mom and pop, and this isn't meant to scare anybody because I could be completely wrong. The little mom and pop shed lots, like I started 7 years ago, it's not a sustainable business model going forward for most people. I was lucky if I had 8 or 10 buildings on my lot, and fortunately, because I was one of the only games in the state of Washington, Western Washington, certainly one of the only ones advertising on Facebook, I literally dominated the market. But I could not do today what I did then. Like I could, if I opened up the same way, I would not have the same results. It's a different time.
You
I just,
have to
it's
grow
just,
with your industry.
yeah.
You have to grow with your industry, and you have to always be thinking, I don't know if you've ever read that book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, I love that book. I love that book.
Yes.
I read it several years ago. Yep.
Yes. So you have to always be thinking ahead, what's coming up? What can I do different? What can we offer that's going to meet the market in a few months?
Yes.
So you've got to plan
Yeah.
ahead for that stuff.
Yeah. And being a very historically conservative industry, that does present a challenge of technology. And we've all seen it, but I do see it slowly catching up. I'm going to really, really encourage people, dealers, manufacturers, get outside your comfort zone. Bring someone in that can make the changes that need to be made to bump you forward, because we know there are things that are changing, and if you're 2 years behind, you got to get out there and lead. And so for the 2 lots that you run, approximately how many buildings are on each of those lots, your sheds?
I think Parkman has about 22 on that lot, plus the 2 steel structures.
Yes.
The garage is like a 20 by 20 with a lean-to added.
Very nice.
RV cover's big. Kirtland is a big lot. There's over 40 sheds on that lot. And I'm kind of in charge of putting the signage in the buildings and making sure that
Yeah.
every single shed has the size, the price, the sale that's going on, how much they're saving. You can't
Okay.
just say it's 10% off. You have to show them what 10% or 15 or 20% looks like on that piece of paper. They're like, wow, we could save $1,000 on this, And I think that's a big motivation, is just having great signage. You don't want them to walk into a shed and wonder, well, how big is this? Well, what style is this? Well, how much is this? You don't
Right.
want them to have those kind of questions.
I see that happen all the time. And so I'm so glad you brought that up. And I'll tell you, in my past life, I was told that you are not allowed to give out price sheets and you are not allowed to put up pricing on the building. And I said, then I am not allowing myself to represent you. Now, I did stay and I did put up pricing, and I did give out price sheets, and I sold sheds like nobody's business. So, we're not going to debate whether one's better than the other. Now, I have an acquaintance in Arizona who does not put pricing up, and he's very, very, very successful. And, for him, it's like, hey, it's not my style. It's a turnoff to me. I'm not going to go to Safeway and take 3 gallons of milk, of different brands of milk, up to the register and wait to get a price. It's 2024, but there are different, full disclosure, there are different styles, but I think we know that statistically speaking, most potential customers want exactly what you're giving them. You're giving them the size because they don't know. I mean, sometimes I'll walk into a shed and I have to look at the number to, because pretty soon they all start looking the same. They certainly don't know. They don't want to have to. For me, I know you're trying to sell me something, and there's a difference between selling me something than me buying it. If I have to ask the price. I like the full disclosure, whether a person puts I don't think we need to debate whether the price needs to be on the outside or the inside. Who cares? It just needs to be somewhere. But I love that. I think that's if folks are thinking, well, I'm not going to put pricing up because that's the way it's always been done, that's where it gets them in trouble. If they are really solid in their sales and it's working for them, that is not the same as, well, that's the way it's always been done, so we're not going to change it. You've got to move forward and give the customers what
And
they want.
I have signs that say sheds are open, and they're little tin signs with a frame, and I put nice lettering on them, little sticky letters that's done very nicely. It says sheds are open. I have others that say look inside, so that if they get there and I'm not there, they know that these sheds aren't locked. You can look inside. And the other big thing I changed was we used to post the size and the price and all that on a wall inside. And I'm like, this is a lot of work keeping these sheds clean. So I post it on the door. So when they open the door, they have it right there. They can take a picture. They're not dragging mud through my sheds. So it keeps everything so nice, and they have the information as soon as they open the door. And to me, that's a big plus. That's how I would want to shop and not have to go into each one and walk across to see what size is it, what price is it.
And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because we actually hung our pricing on the outside and we laminated it. And that's the other thing, folks. Laminators are like $20 on Amazon Basics brand, $19.99. When I go in a shed and I see the piece of paper all flopped over on the wall and sideways, and it's like it's doing harm.
Right. And what I use is those heavy protector sheets, like what goes in your notebook. I use a heavy clear sheet. They're cheap on Amazon, and I cut the little 3-ring binder part off, and then I put the price sheet in there and staple it on the door, so it's not affected by the weather if they leave the door open. So
I love that. I love that. It definitely protects it. I think that's fantastic. Do you think, and we're not going to debate that. I think a shed that protects people's belongings or serves their purpose is a good shed. So we're not debating the quality differences or that. But do you think that you're seeing, like what I'm seeing, of that companies are getting really creative on the things that they're offering, or I see different companies offering wiring and some insulation and some doing split units, and certainly in Washington State, absolutely, that was not happening when I started 7 years ago. They're progressing. Are you seeing that too, in the industry?
Well, Old Hickory does offer a few insulation options. It's not the, R17 pink stuff or anything like that. It is mostly the foil backed, stuff that they can offer.
Like the radiant heat barrier.
Right. Yeah. But the other company I worked for did offer wiring included in your shed. And who was doing the wiring for them? This was interesting to me because it was the vocational teacher at the vocational school that taught electrical trades. So I'm just putting that out there, that you might want to partner with somebody like that, so that you could recommend with confidence, this guy knows what he's doing. But, developing a partnership so that if you don't offer that, you can say, well, we don't offer that, but this fellow has done it for other sales I've had, and I could highly recommend him. So, it's just about kind of offering solutions for them. If they bring it up, you want to be able to offer a solution instead of saying, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we didn't have electrical options. And so I had partnered with, oh my gosh, Chris and Allison Mesa. Hi, Chris and Allison, if you're listening. They're out of Gold Bar, Washington, and Diamond Plate Electric. And I had actually posted something on social media when I started because people were asking about the electrical. We didn't do electrical. And I put it out there about I would love to meet with the electrician so that I can get comfortable referring them. And they are the only people who offered to meet with me. Others, even though I said
Wow.
I want to be able to meet with you, they were like, well, I'll mail you some business cards. I'm thinking, or well, we're too busy to stop by for 10 minutes. So I was like,
No,
well, if you're
no.
too busy to stop by for 10 minutes, you're certainly too busy to probably take care of the customers. Those folks we met at our first lot. I'm still friends with them and they're amazing. And we referred them to tons of people. And so, I love that. We have to I hear all the time, well, that person down the road, they offer something we don't. Who cares? Figure out a solution.
Mm,
And that's what you're doing.
yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's really amazing.
Big
Yeah.
suggestion I have is show up at your lot. I mean, what are
I
you
don't, the
doing?
dealers I work with, I don't make it a suggestion. This is your standard operating procedure. You actually need to be there.
You
I know
have
it's
to be there. Now, I'm the type of shopper that I kind of want to go when they're not there and look around because I'm afraid they're kind of high pressure. But then when I'm ready to buy, I would definitely want someone to be there. And I've had so many sales because they'll tell me, you're the fourth place we stopped at today, and there was nobody at the other three.
Yeah, that's how I became a
What?
dealer. That was my
So
experience.
I'm like, well, I'm here to help you. And I
Yeah,
don't have a closed sign on my door when I'm not there. It says, questions, I'm available to assist you. Please call me. And it has my phone number. It never says closed. I will answer my phone from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
yeah. Well, and I really hope there's some viewers and listeners that are taking wind because everything you're saying is what I'm seeing. In fact, on my new office, I have a little. It says it's a flip flop welcome sign. It says it's super cute. I didn't make it. It was creative. I didn't do it, but it says welcome. And then on the back, at the end of the day, we would flip it over, and it does not say closed. It says for service, please contact us. And so same type of
Yes,
deal.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do you have a couple of pieces? Yes, be at your lot. That's a helpful piece of advice. What are and again, the days of the mom and pop show where people could kind of just do this as a side gig. Just my prediction, but those days are going to be gone before too long.
Yeah.
We're having to progress. We're having to move forward. What are a couple of other pieces of advice that you could give to dealers that may be struggling? What can they do today to
Yeah.
start changing, their
Look,
actions?
look at your ads on Facebook. If you don't have ads on Facebook, I suggest you start. Watch how your ads are written and, kind of pay attention to the details we talked about. Show up at your lot and look at your lot as a customer would look at your lot. I drove by one the other day and it was overgrown with weeds and there was nobody there. And I was just so disappointed for the owner of that lot. It looked abandoned. So you want it to look like there's someone here a lot, have your
Yes.
clean, have them priced, marked. I have a really great idea I'm working on for another type of demo shed that I think is really going to rock the industry and my sales. So I'm going to have to keep you posted on that, but it's another vision I have. So I'm going to start working on that project here pretty soon. And I think it's going to be a really great sales tool to use, even if I'm not there. So I can't wait to get that done and send you pictures and see what your thoughts are on that, because I think it's going to be phenomenal.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I think of us meeting through Facebook. We're long-term relationship, and eventually I'll get out to Ohio and we'll meet. And if you get out to Arkansas, let me know, or Oklahoma. So I'm going to do a couple of flash questions that I didn't prepare you on. So what is your dream vacation?
Ooh, dream vacation somewhere with my grandkids. Just to go somewhere, stay at a nice place, have stuff for them to do. My grandkids are just freaking awesome kids. They are just so wonderful to be around, and I love watching them. They are just never a problem. So anywhere I could take my grandkids to the beach or anywhere, it's a big day for me.
I love that. Last question. If money was not an issue, what is your dream car?
My dream car. That's funny because I used to work at a Mercedes dealership.
Oh,
Yes, years ago, I was in the office at a Mercedes dealership. So my dream car is actually, I think the one I'm driving now, it's a 2012 Toyota RAV4. And I just love that car. It fits everything. It goes through everything. It's been my little buddy. As you can imagine, I've done a couple upgrades, here and there to make it more functional for what I do.
that
But
you have.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like I have it just the way I want it. My mechanic keeps saying, Pam, one of these days, I'm like, don't even talk to me.
I
We can't
love
be
it.
friends anymore if you're going to talk about replacing this car. So I would probably stick with, my dad has a Toyota Highlander, which is very nice, but I love my
And
RAV4.
so I didn't expect that answer, but we did actually have someone on months ago that said a Toyota Camry was their dream car if money wasn't an issue, and now the Toyota RAV4. So I'm seeing a pattern of Toyotas being dream vehicles. So I appreciate that. Before we wrap up today, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, gosh, where do we get more training on all the stuff that you're accomplishing? Because I would love to get more YouTube videos, more information that way. The Shed University was great, but then you get home and you're like, oh, I want to know so much more.
I actually am putting together a master class program, and it will be available. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be very expensive. I see this as companies needing to invest in their employees. What I train on is repeatable and it is proven, and it is, it's not your daddy's shed sales anymore. We've got to change. So that will be coming out at some point. I am
Great.
working on that. I am working on that in my spare time. So but as always, reach out anytime. I think the camaraderie of being able to just reach out to our friends in the industry and ask questions, or you know um if I do better, you do better. If you do better, someone else does better. It's the pay it forward thing, and that's the biggest thing I see in this industry. To just to wrap up that question, is people are put in positions of training who have never sold a shed,
Yeah.
and it's very, very expensive for the companies, and it's very ineffective overall. I mean, you and me are going to be rock stars regardless of the lack of training we got, but most people they need that. And it's just I'm doing my part to try to help the industry. So all right. Well, thank you all for listening or watching to this week's episode of the Shed Geek podcast. Pam, it has been my absolute pleasure. I am Susan the Shed Gal, and we'll see you again next week.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.